The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on August 9th, 2022.
Aloha and good morning, Maui. Welcome to the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm your host, Pamela Timpot, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce. Today we're going to spend some time talking about Resolution 22-70. It is the visitor accommodations cap, and if it's passed, it will create, take the temporary moratorium and make that a permanent moratorium on the expansion of visitor accommodations. So we're going to hear different industry views on that. We're also going to hear from Michael Elam of Mana'o Radio on a big event coming up. But first, we're going to start off the morning with Ray Michaels, president of Maui Plumbing Company. He is a dedicated owner with ground-up knowledge that you can rely on. He started out as a small company and rapidly grew, and part of his philosophy is always about having the highest expectations for quality and service. He is on the board for the Chamber of Commerce's Construction Industry of Maui Trade Council and represents, in testimony at the County Council, CIM, which is the Construction Industry of Maui acronym, CIM's positions as well as his own. Aloha and good morning, Ray. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Pam. Thanks for having me on this morning.
It's my pleasure. You know, the Maui contractors have long been involved in visitor accommodations projects. And during this great pandemic, the work that the accommodations industry was doing in terms of renovations really kept the contractors working throughout COVID. And from many accounts that I've heard, really helped prevent what otherwise could have been many substantial layoffs. And they were able to do a lot of this work because they were closed during that time. But, you know, these properties needed a refresh. And now we're looking at this Resolution 2270 that comes on the heels of the moratorium we're currently under. But essentially, this cap would make it so that we couldn't expand visitor accommodations. Can you tell me a little bit about the construction industry of Maui's position on this and why the industry and maybe you personally care so much about this measure?
Sure. So, you know, I try to look at everything as objectively as possible. And so I pulled State of Hawaii's Department of Industrial Relations labor report for 2020. And in Maui alone, construction accounted for $310 million of wages for our working class. So if you think about it, if they were to stop all hospitality construction, which is what this is proposing, 2270, and if you maybe take an arbitrary number of 10% or 20% of, you know, construction-related activity is for the hospitality industry, that's still $31 million or $62 million of wages that are going to be lost. So I feel this is a bit short-sighted. You know, I like to say it's myopic policymaking wrapped in good intentions, but I don't think any of these policymakers are really looking at the loss of wages that our working class is going to see as a result of this policy.
You know, one of the, I appreciate it, and thank you for sharing that data. It's one of these things that you talk about. It's good intentions, trying to address some community concerns of, you know, again, and we're working on tourism management, and there's a lot of efforts these days going on tourism management, which is a strong community concern, and justifiably so with some of the rapid growth that we've seen. But what this now does is this bill, if passed, and again it's going before the Planning Commission, this bill then creates a permanent moratorium where we kind of had triggers in the current moratorium bill. So the current moratorium bill still exists, and there were two triggers that would end that bill, which this now would replace. One of the triggers was a temporary investigative group. And a lot of people felt that that wasn't really well balanced in terms of the people who serve, and that industries like the construction industry, a stronger, a strong presence by the visitor industry should have been partners in that. How do you feel about that first initiative and having that just two measures, the fact that they had a temporary investigative group, which was well underway while they were working on the first moratorium bill, and then the second trigger was looking at a bill for caps, which this now is that bill. How do you feel about the process?
Well, I think we're largely excluded from the process. We're a major stakeholder here. We may account, the construction industry accounts for about 8% of total private sector employment, but we account for 15% of total wages in the county. We're not immune to the damages of over-tourism. We all live here. We all want clean beaches to swim in. We want a clean environment. We don't want over-tourism. We don't want too much traffic. We don't want vacation rentals in our neighborhoods. We're all residents. So, we are sensitive to over-tourism, and we share those sentiments with these policymakers about that. But there's no viable alternative in place for the loss of wages in our industry. It's a bit putting the cart before the horse, where it's like, well, we need to diversify our economy and get away from hospitality. Well, we agree, but, these policymakers are painting very low-resolution image solutions of what that's going to look like. Nobody really has a viable solution. So, my question is why aren't we included in the process, being, one of the biggest industries here? And, what are the alternative solutions? But we haven't gotten that feedback.
Exactly. And another concern of ours, and first of all, I'll say that just in terms of policy, the Maui Chamber of Commerce doesn't support moratoriums because we feel there's a lot of work that can be done prior to moratoriums. So we're generally opposed to moratoriums. We feel that a lot of, again, broader community discussions involving all affected industries, of course, taking into account community concerns and bringing sort of all parties to the table so that we can have inclusive discussion and look at, best practices, solutions, new innovative ideas, really fully examine this. And we've had a moratorium in place now for 6 months, and it's ongoing. And, if this bill is discussed, it's ongoing while this current bill is resolution is being discussed. But so in the meantime, the moratorium still exists. But where's the data to show if the moratorium is achieving the impacts that they tout it will achieve to address the concerns that we all have that you just mentioned?
Yeah, and, that doesn't exist yet. And I think the effects of the moratorium are still yet to be seen. One of the things our industry is worried about is this upcoming recession, or the recession that we're already in. Many of our larger projects are getting postponed indefinitely because of the rise of costs of construction-related materials, is over 200%. So projects that were designed are no longer meeting budget. So we're finding that over and over where projects such as Pulelehua or Maui Pagoda Hotel in Kaʻalui are on hold because the ownership didn't realize how much costs of construction have gone up in the last few years. And so these projects are no longer meeting budget. And now we have county council putting a moratorium on other related construction projects that would have been viable. So we're deeply concerned that this council is not looking at this picture from a 10,000-foot view. They're looking at it, from a very narrow-minded view of, we worry about over-tourism and we worry about the environment. Well, sure, so do we. We definitely worry about the environment, but you're not going to make the environment better by making our working class poorer. And that's what one of the negative effects of this bill is going to do.
Yeah. What suggestions would you give the Maui County Council? You talked about, again, we really don't have a lot of viable solutions. We're looking at economic diversification. There's a lot of areas that we could go in. Some of the bigger economic development ideas have been discussed for 20 years. However, some of them are still viable. And others, maybe we need to look outside of the box and come up with some new thinking. What do you think can we also want to leverage off of industries we have, like the visitor industry, like the construction industry? What do you see as some of the more viable economic alternatives that maybe we should be looking at?
Well, the construction industry is interesting because we're going through what we call the fourth industrial revolution now in construction, where we're finally starting to adopt technology, and we're doing things like three-dimensional models of our buildings that we're building. We call these digital twins. So we're able basically to build the building on a computer before it actually gets built, and this is beneficial for a number of ways, but it actually creates jobs in our industry that are highly technical and highly technological. And, you can do this type of work. Like, we hire out this work, my company personally, to a company on the mainland because there's just not a lot of talent here that we can hire for it. But I think that sector, the construction sector, in a technology aspect, where we're not building things here, but we're helping things get built elsewhere, using things like three-dimensional modeling and training our workforce for that, which we're already starting to do. Unfortunately, we're surviving off our looks here. We don't really have a lot of, resources we can sell other than our looks. We do want to build, affordable housing in lieu of building more hospitality. But, the council has kind of, been a roadblock to that, not allowing things such as by right development. That would be one thing that we would promote is like, okay, well, if you're going to put a moratorium indefinitely on the hospitality industry and not allow us to build or renovate these hotels, then really you need to remove some of the roadblocks to building affordable housing. And one of those key roadblocks would be, to allow by right development for affordable housing projects.
That's a very good point. And, getting back to your other idea as well as talking about, and I love that you mentioned this, the work that is being done in this fourth industrial revolution where you're adopting tech. We just had on our show last week discussion on, these digital modelings where you've actually got this 3D modeling of a full building that you can actually do virtual walkthroughs and how exciting that is. And that's huge in architecture, engineering, and building these days. So really exciting to see that. And again, as you point out, those are products that we can export. So those are great clean industry, high-paying jobs, and gives us an export product.
And I think we have the best. I always say the best modelers or the best building modelers have always come from the field. They've always come from working in the field because they know how things go together, right? Not just in theory, but practically, because they put them together. So we have the workforce that has the skill set to be able to, further this part of our industry. I like to tell the people I bring in to be modelers who were once plumbers in the field, I'm like, guys, you know how to do this. Right now I'm just showing you how to click buttons on a screen, but you already know how to put in plumbing, right? So I think it's definitely a viable subset of an industry that's already thriving here. So it's something we definitely promote and support, and it's really exciting to see the cool technology that's coming out for construction, for 3D modeling, where you can actually put on a VR headset and be in an empty field and walk through the actual building virtually.
Yeah, I've seen it years ago, and we helped teach classes. I helped teach some classes, not me personally teaching them, but organizing the classes with architects and engineers in Honolulu a while back. And it's fascinating technology. And today, even more so, because the process really can eliminate a lot of mistakes beforehand and do cost analysis. You talked about the increasing price of, all of the supplies needed for construction. There's ways to use this modeling to also look at ways to more efficiently build. And so it's really an exciting tool.
Yeah, and what the industry is seeing now is this new type of design called generative design. And so it's actually using AI to design buildings. So let's say you have, a half an acre lot that you want to build a building on. And so you give the program a certain set of parameters, like you want your units to be 800 square feet, right? And you can only build 4 stories, and you need this much parking. Well, what the computer will do is it will generate several dozen different designs to fit that lot, right? And then human input comes in and makes it small adjustments. So it's really a way of maximizing your building density on a lot, right, where you can build the maximum amount of units a lot and lower the cost per unit to build. And then this also goes into off-site construction, which is something that, my company takes a lot of pride in, is prefabricating components off-site. So this helps not only make the job safer, more efficient, and less costly, it actually helps train a workforce, because now we're not training in the field.
Right.
We're training in a controlled environment, so it's quicker and much safer.
I love that. And we're seeing more of that, where we're compartmentalizing pieces of the construction process and making it more of a manufacturing process.
Well, I always tell people we are manufacturing. Construction is manufacturing, but we just build the one prototype the one time.
Right.
Whereas manufacturing, you build the prototype and then you build that a million times
That's
over,
right.
and you get better as you go. We don't have that privilege, so we have to look at, how do we build the most efficiently, right? And,
right.
We have a problem with affordability in construction. Well, part of that is the construction industry's fault. We've been doing the same things we've been doing for the last 20 to 30 years. So we really need to look at how do we do things different to make them affordable.
Exactly. And I think this is a great connection, too, because with what's happening with this Visitor Industry Resolution 2270 and how it ties into the moratorium that we are currently under, part of that is so much driven by community sentiment and frustration with the lack of affordable housing. So, again, we need comprehensive solutions. And there are many other ways to look at that. And we also need, not only do we need to better manage tourism, do we need, strong economic diversification efforts and a priority-based plan, but we also really need to look at, again, how housing is such a critical part of this and how we come up with better solutions for all of these critical needs.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of this is driven by community sentiment for the lack of affordable housing. But, I will be bluntly honest here. The council's to blame for this, for their, I think UH did a study that showed that, Hawaii has the most onerous building restrictions in the country, right? But we're not taking down those barriers. They're trying to put new ones up. It's like rather than allowing by right development and exclusionary zoning, it's like, well, we want to do, I think Dave Johnson's bill 1120 was what it was, where they were going to subsidize construction affordable housing. It's like, well, now you're giving builders and developers just another roadblock to get through.
Right.
So I don't want to make this about affordable housing, but it does tie in. It's like, yes, well, this is driven by community sentiment. Well, if you want us to build affordable housing, you have to take away the roadblocks and the barriers to do so, not put more in place, or not put a roadblock, over here in the hospitality sector, which I think this is part of this kind of way of the council doing things in this maladroit fashion of like, well, if we put a roadblock over here where they can't build in hospitality, then maybe they'll have to build affordable housing instead.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not how it's going to work. You're going to see a drop in wages. And like I said, there's $310 million of wages in the construction industry for Maui County alone. Even if you just account for 10% of that being just for the hospitality industry, that's still $31 million of wages that the working class is now poorer for. And they have no viable solution to mitigate that loss in wages.
Yeah. Ray, that was a great point to end on. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your perspective and having you on today to share your thoughts and the thoughts of the construction industry of Maui. and why this measure and how it's viewed are so important to the industry.
Well, thanks for having me on, Pam. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. We'll talk again soon.
Okay, bye now.
Aloha. All right, we're going to take a quick break to have a message from our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
And we're back. If you're just tuning in, this is Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. Our next guest is Joe Pluta, president of the West Maui Taxpayers Association and West Maui Improvement Foundation. Joe has 30 years in real estate and travel industry experience in Hawaii and has been devoted to a myriad of diversified positions from the ground floor up in restaurants, hotels, and condominium hotels. He has worked in various positions in the travel industry while attending the University of Hawaii and graduated with a BBA in Travel Industry Management and Real Estate. He's currently a member of the Realtors Association of Maui, Lahaina Rotary, and volunteers on a number of community efforts. So there's many committees that he serves on to serve our community. Joe, aloha and welcome to the show.
Aloha.
I don't know if you've had a chance to listen in. We have been, and I know you came to share with us, we've been talking about Resolution 2270 that's going before the Maui Planning Commission, which will have an impact on the moratorium we're currently under, essentially ending the, triggering now, that moratorium will sort of this bill will create a permanent moratorium because that moratorium ends with two triggers, but then this bill sort of overarches that. And a lot of this is going to be in your area, in West Maui, which is our economic engine, with people operating in planned places.
It's so sad, Pamela. It really is so sad. There's just so many angry people out there, and they don't know where to turn. So that it seems like they want to take their anger out on the tourism industry and blame the tourists for all the ills that they have, and the correlations that they make that it's the hotel's fault or the travel industry's fault or the visitors' fault. It's just so wrong. I heard your little bit background there. I started the West Maui Taxpayers 43 years ago, West Maui Taxpayers Association. Yes. So I've been for 43 years watching the county of Maui very closely and its legislation, its policies, its practices, and as well as the state of Hawaii. And I can tell you that I know more than I want to know, and the more you know, the scarier it gets. You can see just how there's been a tremendous amount of finger pointing that's always gone on here for the longest time, finger pointing, and no one wants to take responsibility. But our elected officials are the ones who are charged with the authority to be able to do something about how situations. And instead of making things better, they've been making things worse. And rather than taking the responsibility for making wrong decisions and creating the crises that we've had ongoing and continuing to be ongoing, yes, and not doing anything to resolve the crises, they instead of taking responsibility, they want to blame somebody else, and they'll join right in with the loud vocal minority who's got nothing else to do but complain about things. They're not working two jobs. They got lots of time, and so there are lots of time. They'll go and speak up about how they feel about things, and it's very unfortunate. Tourism industry is in Maui is the most. Maui relies more on tourism than any other county in the state of Hawaii.
Yes,
over 55% of all the tax revenues that Maui County gets comes from the hotel industry. That is so out of proportion. in Oahu is something like 5% of the real property tax comes from the hotel industry. Here it's 54.9 something percent. It's ridiculous. I mean, so the county leaders have made us so over-dependent upon tourism and continue to just pass a $1 billion budget with 55% of it coming from the real property tax revenue, $230 million coming from the hotel industry. And now you want to attack that industry that you're so, I mean, it's over 50%.
But yeah, so reliant upon. Yes.
It's just what? I mean, what do we? They've been for the whole 43 years. Actually, 10 years in Oahu. I was there before I came to Maui. So for 53 years, I've been watching this situation.
Yes.
And for 53 years, they've tried. Believe me, they've tried. They've had all kinds of things of how they were going to replace the visitor industry with some other industry. They haven't done anything to come remotely close. And they've tried and tried and tried. It's just the visitor industry and the tourism industry is the financial engine that drives the place. And it used to be much more embraced by the people.
Absolutely.
You know, it was much more, I don't know, there was a much better relationship between the industry and the general population. It's because the other and all this ancillary other issues of lack of affordable housing and the crazy prices, unable to find places to live. All this anger has brought out this misplaced resentment against the tourism industry. The hotels pay their share of taxes, and so beyond believable. If they weren't paying that amount of money, the average Maui resident would have to take it and multiply the property taxes that they're paying to meet that county budget by 10 to 20 times more.
Right.
They couldn't afford to stay in their own homes if it wasn't for the hotel industry. So
I don't think people really get that. I think
no, they don't.
They really don't understand how subsidized their taxes are, and we keep giving residential tax breaks.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we can only do that with such a robust engine.
Exactly. So, this whole thing about, here's one of the things I've also learned is that, in Hawaii, there's a thing called the Aloha Spirit Law.
Yes.
And the Aloha Spirit Law charges our lawmakers, more than any, civil servants and policymakers, to follow the Aloha Spirit by law. And I propose that our county council has been in violation of the Aloha Spirit Law, and they should all be fined. They've violated the law. They've broken the Aloha Spirit Law. They're in violation, and they need to be reminded about that. I don't know what the consequences are for. What is your
I will tell you. Unfortunately, unlike other laws, that one doesn't that law does not specify any penalties. But you're right. It was written for elected officials and was given to the people of Hawaii as a gift to be embraced. And I think when you look back at that law and you think about the philosophy behind it, which is, imagine if our elected officials truly embraced the Aloha Spirit and really listened to the entire community. Yes, you're going to have people who align with your views, but you need to listen to all views, and you need to find winning solutions. And, it talks about to hear what's not being said and to know the unknowable. And if they really embrace that, and government embrace that as a whole, the lives of the people would be much better.
Oh, yeah.
It would be great if we had rulers that embrace that. Things would be really much better. The
love is absent, and the Aloha Spirit Law. So we got to restore that. We got to restore that. People have got this misconceptions that they've got to be get some truth, some reality back to them. I mean, if you told those people that, how would you like to pay, 10 times more than you're paying in real property taxes right now, or maybe 20 or 30 times more, because now the hotels are you've made them so that they're not able to contribute that kind of money that they're doing now. Oh my God, it would be really outrageous. I mean, we are spending like crazy, and the only reason we can spend like crazy is because of the hotel industry.
Yeah.
So what are they spending the money on? They should be spending all that money on all the things that they need to do to make things better for the people who live here.
Yeah.
They got the income. Where's it coming from? It's coming from the hotel industry. So they should Milama it, take it with gratitude, and apply it to the solutions that they need.
Yeah.
And they're not applying it to the solutions they need. They're misapplying it to all kinds of things, and not the major crises that we keep on kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, on housing. You know, the other thing is that I'm really concerned in this bill. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm really concerned about in this bill, but, you know, talking about the hotel properties, before it was about expanding, right, beyond their current building envelope, which is still included. They don't want them to expand beyond their current building envelope, even if they're actually, in expanding the envelope, reducing room, the room count. But now they're not even able to the TVR properties aren't able to renovate. When you can't renovate your property, you lose property value. I mean, there's elements in this that when you look at this, and then there's a taking in some of these things, trying to reverse the Minatoya decision, and look at some of the elements of you know, how the properties can then use, and depending on at what point in time they were operating as a TVR as of January 7th. Okay, well, January 7th has already long passed. So there's also some takings of vested property rights in this that could cause significant litigation. And again, as you point out, we are getting so much money from this industry. And by the way, I'm talking about the legal industry. We definitely have challenges, and none of us support illegal vacation rentals. So we want to say that very clearly. But the way that we're going about this and taking away just historic rights when people are operating in districts that were planned for this activity, when we're not seeing what they thought we would see with putting a moratorium in place, that we're going to see less visitors somehow than more. We're just driving people to illegals because they're going to come, and they're going to find a way to come. There's just so many things in here that we just really feel should have been further broadened out. And again, with all this focus on these kinds of bills halting an economic engine, we're not getting to critical issues that the community is screaming for, which is affordable housing and rentals and apartments.
That's right, exactly. This is a diversion from taking responsibility from solving the real problems and diverting people's attention somewhere else that they're blaming the blame game, finger pointing to another industry, which is, you brought up a very important point. You know, the illegal vacation rentals, we know that's going on. There's actual census of visitors that have increased beyond the room counts. So where are they staying? The total authorized rooms that are out there cannot meet the capacity for the increase. So it proves they're staying in illegal. They're staying here illegally in unpermitted, unlicensed rental units in people's homes or campers or vans or elsewhere. But they're not staying in the hotels or bona fide vacation rental permitted properties. So, and they don't pay. Of course, those illegal rentals aren't paying any transit accommodations tax or, getting getting the extra revenues like they're supposed to be paying. So they're getting away for this for free. And you're right. When people see the amount of income they can make, and people are so desperate to stay here, they'll pay anything, and they'll say, "You got to keep your mouth shut, about this. You can't say where you're staying and all this other stuff."
Yeah.
Because so they get the tourists to be complicit in their illegal activity, so that they have a place to stay that they can. It's just terrible. So it's cramping down on illegal vacation rentals that aren't paying taxes and are doing it properly. That's a higher priority, and not going after the hotel industry and the lawfully licensed, permitted properties, and allowing them to do whatever it is they need to do to retain that profitability and maintain their ability to continue to pump that tremendous economic fuel to the county of Maui and the state of Hawaii, and to take care of their employees. I mean, I know so many people who make careers in the hotel business that they're just really taken care of. They got great benefits. They're very happy people. They're like part of a big family, and the people who are outside of that who don't see that. The happy, contented people are not out there at these meetings complaining about things. So we have a silent majority. It's a way huge, big silent majority that supports the hotel business. That feels just so powerless about these things that are going on, and it's not their nature to be having to complain about things. So the hospitality industry is served by people who like to serve, and that's to me, service is what we all should be doing. How can I make life better? Is service. I've devoted my life to service. I've served on so many organizations without pay and have been for so long, because that's the true reward. Is the things money can't buy. Right. Money can't buy your health. Money can't buy friendship. Money can't buy love, and so that's. All this misappropriated angst towards the hotel industry and somehow thinking that they're the evil ones and let's cap them and then make it more difficult for them somehow is so misplaced. It needs to, it's got to be changed.
Yeah. And one of the things we always keep talking about is economic diversification. And we are all supportive of economic diversification. It's interesting to me, looking back, and I've had years at Maui Economic Development Board, several years working for the cable company, several years working for Maui United Way. So I span both for and nonprofits, and in every event, every job I've had, we look at economic diversification. And in economic diversification, you look at how you can leverage off of existing successful industries. The visitor industry being one. So when we talk about a health and wellness industry, which would be so awesome for our residents, that leverages off of visitor industry. When we look at things like the Chambers Project, the Made in Maui County Festival, and supporting our local manufacturers, when we look at agriculture tanked when we didn't have the visitor industries because so many of our farmers weren't selling the amount of produce that they were able to sell to that industry. Local manufacturers, though, pivoted because of the visitor industry audience. There's a great affinity for locally made products. So there's so much that we want to do and build and support that is leveraged off of our visitor industry. Exactly.
You're absolutely right. And I don't know, that's the kind of conversation and education people need to have. And, it's so unfortunate that our government leaders have been so misinformed or choose not to recognize these things and instead want to speak to the loud minority voices to somehow think that they're speaking to the will of the people. No, that's not the will of the people. That's the will of the the loud minority of people who've got lots of problems, and they want to blame it on somebody. And these things got to be exposed. There needs to be a malamaing of the visitor industry, a caring and nurturing of it, and see how we can work together. Their interests are the same as everyone's. Everybody in the service industry wants this to be the most beautiful experience for visitors and residents alike.
Right.
Not just for the tourists.
Right. Yeah. And we're at a time when we are, trying to and working very hard, and it was happening pre-COVID, to look for those visitors who really want to know about our culture and who want to know about the Aloha Spirit and our sustainability efforts. And, and yet county has cut visitor industry marketing. This is a time where we could have reinvested in that marketing, but transformed it in a new light. So,
it was the one area that you got a return on investment was in the tourism marketing industry and how well we did. I was in the very initial Maui County Visitors Association Board of Directors we formed many years ago, about 35 years ago, with Frank Blackwell, and I toured all over the world with the Maui Visitors Bureau and spreading aloha and seeing that, and we saw the return on investment. We saw how that monies that we spent came back to the people who wanted to experience aloha, and they came here not to destroy the place, but to nurture it and to have reverence over this whole thing of aloha, and to respect the culture, to learn about Hawaii's values. I mean, Hawaii is a beautiful place, and so are the people, and that's what's the allure of Hawaii. So this whole angst against the tourism industry is so inappropriate and so wrongfully placed. It's just the wrong in so many ways.
Oh, Joe, we're going to have to end there, but thank you for sharing those important points, and thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate you, and as always, thank you for your tremendous service throughout our
pleasure.
community.
God bless you.
God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Aloha. All right. Well, we are now going to move to a different topic, and I am very excited to welcome Michael Elam. Michael is the president of the board of directors of Mana'o Radio. Now, in addition to that role, he plays the role of development director, is involved in a lot of fundraising events, special events, and outward-looking tasks like press releases, social media, websites, and more. Here's what's exciting about Mana'o Radio. It is an all-volunteer station and has been from the beginning. It makes for a very diverse, eclectic collection of music, certainly unlike anything else in the state of Hawaii, and not really much like anything else anywhere. It is a very unique station headed by Michael Elam. Michael, aloha, and thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Aloha, Pamela. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I really appreciate this opportunity, and what a great intro you gave me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. I want to touch briefly on something, but then I really want to get to the exciting news. But I was reading that you right now are in the process of creating a 10-year vision and working on succession planning for Mana'o Radio. So can you take a couple of minutes just to tell us briefly about how you're doing that? Because so many people wonder about succession planning, and it's an exciting topic that kind of leads to our next big topic.
Yes, succession planning. I'm one of 6 members right now on our board of directors, and many of those members of the board are getting older, as well as a number of our DJs who have been with us we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and many of them, including myself, have been with us for a majority of that time. So succession planning is if we want the station to stay around, and we're all volunteers, and how do you do that? How do we make sure that we are going to be where we want to be in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and beyond? So the first step in doing that is to recruit a number of newer volunteers, younger volunteers, and one of our board members, Annie Byrne, has been charged with that task for the last couple of years and has done a masterful job in really kind of bringing new people in with a wide variety of skills, not necessarily just as DJs. They're able to do a number of different things to help us run this organization. And we're putting them in charge of various projects that are important to the organization, and really kind of, it's a process, but kind of grooming our next set of leaders, that are emerging out of this new group of people. And so, yes, that is something that sustainability and, succession planning is something that's extremely important to us.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that and the reasons and how you've gotten to where you're going, and a little bit about how you're grooming people and bringing them in and getting them involved in projects, because it's so important to, I mean, in every business, but also particularly in the nonprofit sector as well, because we're talking about volunteers versus employees. So it's great to hear what you're doing in that arena.
And you have to start. You have to begin somewhere. I mean, someone has to take a first step,
Right.
and the how and the who and the what and the when, and again, we're volunteers, so you can't just go out and place an ad for a person for a particular set of skills and necessarily expect them to show up and perform those skills for you for free.
Right.
Right, for your organization. So it's really a bit of a challenge, especially in a small island here like Maui. Maybe it'd be a little easier in a major metropolitan area, but certainly a challenge here.
Absolutely. No, I know it. I know it well, serving in the nonprofit sector for many years of my career. No, it's very true. But the important thing is that you did it, and you're continuing to do it, and it comes at a really great time, because you mentioned this is Mana'o Radio's 20th anniversary. First, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so exciting. And I know you've had some things already underway, and there's still more planned. Tell us a little bit about this anniversary celebration.
Yes, and we decided that at the beginning of the year that we would have not just one celebration of our 20th anniversary, but that it would be really a year-long campaign.
Love it.
And a year-long way of offering some live music fundraisers to the Maui community to help us celebrate. And if you couldn't go to one, you would come to the next. If you didn't like the music offered at one, you would go to another one. It would all be different venues and different musicians and the types of music, etc. And so we've had 3 thus far, and we have 2 more to go before the end of 2022. The next one will be coming up on Saturday, September 3rd at Pro Arts Playhouse in Kihei, called Denim and Diamonds.
Oh, I love that.
It's going to be with Kinda Country, Maui's favorite country band, and we're going to offer a brief country music dance lesson at the very beginning, and then Kinda Country will come on and rock the house. And Pro Arts is installing a special dance floor in their room there for this event. Specifically for this event, and so we're very excited about that. Tickets are available now at Mana'oRadio.com.
Now tell me the date again, and then let's talk about the time.
Saturday, September 3rd at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, great. And what time do you think it'll go to?
Probably about 9.
Okay, awesome. And you said it's in Kihei, and
Yes,
give us the location again.
Pro Arts Playhouse in Kihei at the Ozeka Makai Shopping Center.
Great.
Right next to the post office, right in the same area as the Kihei post office.
Oh, that's awesome. And how much are the tickets that are available now?
Tickets are $30, and the entire proceeds go to support listener-supported Mana'o Radio.
Okay, and people can go to Mana'oRadio.com. They can get those. So you're going to have a great day. I actually, just for my mother's 80th birthday, did a Denim and Diamonds, and it was Neil Diamond theme music for her 80th birthday. So we kind of had fun with that. But she loves country. She loves country music and loves line dancing. So I think we need to continue her birthday down at your celebration on the 3rd. I'm going to plan on that. And what else do you have coming?
Perfect.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
One more planned for November. We still don't have the details on that one yet.
Okay.
But we will do on the air, of course. We'll be announcing it on the air on Mana'o Radio and also on our website and social media coming up.
Awesome. Now, what types of music have you already covered in this year-long celebration?
Right. So the first celebration was in March, at the end of March, at Mulligan's on the Blue, and it was called Roaring Twenties Masquerade Ball. And we asked people to dress up in their best Roaring Twenties attire, and we had a costume contest, and it was completely sold out. People loved it, and it was right as the travel and masking restrictions and all that for COVID were ending.
Right.
And so people were really excited to have an opportunity to go out and party as a result of that. And I think we just happened to take advantage of that at the right time.
And what a perfect theme for that.
It was, yes. And, everybody came dressed up just to the nines in just beautifully outfitted, particularly the women and some of the men as well, and had a great time with that. And then in May, we had a very different event. It was a free concert outdoors at the Maui Brewing Company Beer Garden.
Nice.
In the evening, on a Sunday evening, and offered music by a number of our own DJs, both current and past. People like Randall Rosepond and Dorothy Betts and Vince Esquire, Steve Grimes, Gail Swanson, and more. And just a beautiful evening and beautiful sunset and outdoors in a very safe environment, watching and listening to this wonderful music.
Oh, well, we've got
and
about...
then in July...
Oh, go ahead. Tell me
sorry.
real quick. In July, yes.
Yes, in July we had another event at Mulligan's that was really a blues called Blues Review and Barbecue. And Mulligan's fired up the grill and they offered some barbecue items on their menu. And Jimmy Dillon and Dan Kai and Tempa Singer Neve of Soul Kitchen.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. I'm sorry we didn't get to hear all the music, but you've had a great series of events, and we're so excited about September 3rd as a way to support Mana'o Radio, and knowing that on your 20th anniversary celebration, more's coming up in November. That is all the time we have today for Business Matters radio show. I'm your host, Pamela Tumpa, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, wishing everyone blessings and best wishes for a beautiful Maui Day. Aloha.